Alright, we are back for another video. And today's video is a very interesting one. Note, I'll tell you this. This one I didn't really get requested, but rather I got from a discussion. So I was talking to two fans, through the comments, because, I get bored like that and I need people to talk to. And, by the way, Ice Poochie and Straightso were the ones I talked to, because it was just random talk. And this idea came up, and I decided to do it. So note, if this video fails, blame them. Okay, jokes aside, jokes aside. Don't get offended, you two. Okay, but today's video is, what would happen if Mark didn't die and became a cyborg like Stroheim? To those who don't remember Mark, he was Caesar's friend who got killed against the Pillarmen. He wanted to marry his wife. I mean, he wanted to get married to a woman he met, so... Yeah, that's the most bare bones description, because we really didn't get to see much of his character, except for, I guess, like, the simple stuff. But that's, like, all of Mark's character. A fun fact I found out while making this video was that his English voice actor is voiced by Narantia's English voice actor. I actually never knew that. It was actually kind of a fun fact to know, so I guess the more you know. But actually kind of get into the discussion. I should kind of actually go into this video now, because, I got to now. But yeah, let's talk about it. What would happen if Mark didn't die and was able to become a cyborg in time? Let's start it now. So I guess we start off with part 2, where most of the beginning of part 2 kind of goes the same for a while. So, we still get Joseph going to New York, Straightso becomes a vampire, Straightso still dies and takes his own life, Joseph goes to Mexico to bust Stroheim out of the Nazis, and this leads to Joseph doing the tequila thing, Joseph versus Santana, that whole thing still happens, yada yada, Joseph meets Caesar, Joseph and Caesar have their little fight, and then they still meet Mark, and then this means Mark still gets hit, but in this timeline, Mark somehow survives long enough so that the Germans can get to him. Now, granted, this is very weird because, in most cases, no one would really be able to survive that. But for the sake of the plot, by some miracle, maybe Mark doesn't get his entire body sliced in half. Maybe it's just a good chunk of his body. Maybe it's nothing vital. Maybe he doesn't lose like half of his head, so he's still got a brain left or something. Maybe he's able to hold on long enough so that the Germans can get to him in time. Regardless, in this timeline, by some miracle, Mark's gonna live a little bit longer. He's gonna squeeze through to the bitter end long enough so that the Germans can get to him in time. I guess if you're talking about other changes when it comes to part 2, I mean, for the most part, with the exception of Mark finally being able to be safe, as the part would kind of flow the same as it does canonically. We still have the whole battle with the Pillarmen. They still have their little wedding ceremony with Joseph. Joseph hates marriage, obviously, as seen with Tomoko, so he doesn't want those rings on him. So obviously we get Joseph and Caesar having to get Lisa's help, eventually leading to Lisa having Machina and Loggins to help, and then that means Susie Q's there. Joseph still fights and kills AC/DC twice. Also, he still peeps on Lisa in the bath, who was actually his mom. We'll get to that, I guess, in the final fight, because that whole thing still happens, unfortunately. But we all get to the changes once we get to Stroheim's return, because not only Stroheim's alive, but Mark's still alive. Like I stated, somehow Mark's able to, I guess, not get fatally wounded, or alternatively, maybe there's some other way for Mark to survive. Granted, it would be really hard to write, but then again, Araki literally was able to have Polnareff survive getting his legs and one of his arms chopped off and thrown off a cliff, and yet despite that, he didn't die from his fall, from blood loss, or wasn't picked up by the sea and drowned to death. No, none of that killed Polnareff, by some miracle. So by that logic, theoretically, you should realistically make up a dumb excuse to keep Mark alive. I forgot the name of the guy I was doing a video on. I guess it shows how memorable of a character he really was. Okay, so I guess going to it, the Switzerland fight really wouldn't change, except Mark would probably stay around a bit longer to help Joseph and catch up with Caesar. Obviously, with one of the Pillarmen here, Mark would have actually tagged along with Caesar in this timeline. Reason being is because Mark probably knows Caesar's pain and would want to help out his bro. Alternatively, he could talk Caesar out of it, but I don't think he would be able to. But I do think Mark would instead decide to travel along with Caesar, knowing that it would be, I guess, best to help Caesar out. And plus, with his German hacks, he should be able to keep up against Wamu. And Joseph and, I mean, not Joseph, but Caesar and Mark, who has, like, I guess, the hacks Stroheim would have. Probably not as good, granted, but still pretty good regardless. And they should be able to go against Wamu together. Now, in this timeline, I actually think that Wamu would probably still win, but Caesar wouldn't die. I could still see Caesar maybe taking the ring, but I think Mark would just like take Caesar away before he gets crushed. Or maybe since Mark does have all those new hacks on him, he could actually just save Caesar as a whole, and this could lead to both of them killing him, which is probably what I would have personally gone for. But if that's not the case, then I really don't think nothing would change, except Caesar would be hospitalized. I do think Caesar would get hospitalized after this fight's over, though, granted, but he would actually kill not Loggins, but Wamu, and actually injure him, so that's kind of one thing here. And then I guess Joseph would be down a Pillarman to fight, or maybe Caesar still loses, but just doesn't die because screw my ADHD. So I guess like Mark would be able to pull Caesar away before he gets crushed by the giant stone, and then maybe in this timeline Caesar would live. So regardless, in this timeline, I do think Caesar would live because he's got his bro with him. And no, Joseph was not his bro. Joseph left him to die. Okay, in this timeline, after this happens, what comes next? Well, I think Mark would stay with Caesar for a while, so most of the part would kind of just go the same. Regardless, nothing much would really change if I'm being honest. Maybe if Caesar does get any injuries, they could maybe Caesar could lose a finger in the fight and maybe he gets like a cyborg finger or something cool like that. I don't know. Those are some possibilities. Maybe Caesar can come out of the part having cyborg kind of looks. Like maybe he still gets crushed in this timeline, but Mark can pull Caesar out of the way in time, and maybe Caesar becomes like a cyborg. I don't know. It's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to be what happens in this timeline. But regardless, Wamu's fight either gets skipped or still happens, but I don't even think Joseph vs. Wamu would honestly change. Now when it comes to Cars, maybe Cars actually loses. So in this timeline, you have Mark, who probably would have UV lights on him, and plus with Caesar, who's got his whole bubble thing, he's probably doing UV lights as well to help out. In this case, they may actually kill Cars in this fight. The main reason behind them killing Cars in this timeline would mainly be because of the fact that Cars really probably might get overwhelmed in this timeline. With more people around, there is a chance he may actually end up getting killed. If that's the case, then realistically, part 2 would end with Joseph keeping his hand, hopefully. I don't think that would happen, and I'm personally just going to assume the fight ends the same. Mark could probably tag along with Stroheim, granted, but nothing much would really change. I guess Stroheim, maybe Mark could be the one who loses his lower body instead, I guess, or maybe still Stroheim. But Stroheim probably still gets it reattached like he does in the canon. And obviously Mark would still probably get some more, I guess, cyborg parts if he loses any other limbs in the fight against Stroheim. I mean, not Stroheim, but Cars. Caesar's probably there, and oh my gosh, I keep botching names. I didn't botch that name, but I just realized how many names I've been botching. Sorry. I'm sorry. But I guess going back to it, Caesar could actually be there with Joseph in this timeline, maybe. I personally don't think he'd be there. He'd probably be taking care of Lisa, trying to heal her with his hormone and stuff. But after that, part 2 ends. Joseph still dies, and then proceeds to come back and go to his own funeral. You know, like how Joseph normally always does. So part 2 kind of goes the same, but the big changes are that Caesar would actually live, and so would Mark. So we would have 2 new survivors in this alternative universe. Now, I guess regarding part 3, I think before part 3, like after 2, Stroheim would live because Mark would actually be there to help him. Due to UV light hacks and stuff, and also Caesar would probably be there too, since Italy and Germany were allies in World War II. So in this timeline, with more help, Stroheim actually would have survived World War II. So in other words, we would still have Stroheim. In this timeline, Caesar and Stroheim would have their families, so I will include Julius and Rose, and I will include Dominic and Nico. For those who don't know, Dominic and Nico are Stroheim's OC kids that I made up, and Julius and Rose are Caesar's OC grandkids. If you're wondering what happens to the son of Caesar, he gets killed by Dio. So for first-time viewers, you can be caught up there. Now, Mark would go on to have a family of his own, because, he canonically would have gotten married, and plus at that point I think he would have definitely wanted to have a family of his own. Now, for Mark, he would have a daughter named Marcia. This would be a pretty good name for a girl, and I think it kind of fits with it being kind of similar to Mark. So Marcia is his daughter, and she would go on to marry a man by the name of Hedwig Gutenberg. I'd like Gutenberg. It's a very German-sounding last name, since Mark is German canonically. So now we have a bloodline out of it, because at this point they would all become stand users, the Gutenberg bloodline, with Mark also there too. The main reason I gave Mark a daughter are for 2 reasons. For starters, Mark doesn't have a canon last name, and it really would have felt weird to do that. Second off, even if he did, I generally just always got the vibe that he seemed more like a daughter guy. I don't know, he just seemed more like a daughter guy. Kind of like that one guy from Full Metal Alchemist, the guy who was talking about his daughter all the time before he got killed. Full Metal Alchemist spoilers. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, but I guess kind of going back to the main story. Regardless here, that would kind of be the thing there. Like, you have a family there, and they also would have a son by the name of Manfred Gutenberg. So I guess we kind of got a new bloodline to extend upon for the later parts. So we now kind of have, we got, I guess, Mark, we have the Gutenberg bloodline, we got Caesar and his grandkids, Stroheim and his kids, and holy crap, that's 10 people, so 6 people in Stardust Crusaders. And then this would also be including Hull Horse maybe joining, because of there being a girl or a few girls, this would probably motivate him to actually join, which is a cool scenario that I would maybe like to include, because I like my boy Hull Horse. On a side note, maybe Machina and or Lisa somehow get involved. I've been always a little mixed. Not really Lisa. She probably might not get involved, but Machina I've always been really mixed on putting in these what-ifs, because we don't really know much about the character. We don't know what happened to him after 2. I might have to fact-check that, granted, but we don't really know his fate, so to be fair, I've always been a little it's been a weird thing for me. I never felt completely comfortable to put him in, like, my kind of JoJo what-if stuff, but at the same time, it's like, it's not like the end of the world, but it's still kind of weird to me. But I guess kind of going into this timeline, part 3, I guess now with more characters, I never really thought of a stand for the Gutenberg bloodline. I stand for the OCs, and I have stand ideas for Caesar and Stroheim. I don't have any for Mark, and I don't have any for his bloodline yet. I'll think of some eventually. Just gotta dig through some tarot cards for, like, the part 3 stuff. Spoilers, there will be one for part 6 soon, but you'll see when I get to part 6 of this kind of what if, and that will probably be a music reference, but I don't really have any ideas at the moment, but I'll think of some when I get the chance. But here we go. Let's actually talk about 3. I don't think too much is gonna kind of change, except that more people would be here in the part, so in theory this could definitely affect, I guess, a lot more fights, especially group fight wise. This could also be some interesting solo fights maybe, and this could also lead to Dio wanting to be I guess, more cautious about this, because now he has to deal with more enemies. He would know kind of how big of a deal this is going to be. So he's going to send out more enemies, and this would actually lead to the Crusaders probably having more of a challenge. Heck, for all you know, maybe go as far to try to send out someone like Pucci. I'm doubtful, but regardless, it was a possibility. Maybe even John Gallier. He could have sent out people like that, debatably. Or even Kira's dad. Or Okiyasu's dad, maybe even. Probably not, but those are possibilities regardless. I guess going to part 3. I guess Abdul probably is gonna die. Unless maybe someone else takes his death, like Machina probably. Assuming you want to go that Machina route. Maybe even Lisa. Abdul could live. Maybe he still dies. That's kind of hard. But I think in this timeline, with the split up, I would probably leave Caesar, Stroheim, Mark, and Hedwig behind to go against Vanilla Ice, and I would have the others, like the other OC cast, that are all the OCs, with the exception of Hedwig. They would all go against younger Darby, which really wouldn't change too much, except maybe someone else would lose to him instead of like Kakyoin, which I prefer, because Kakyoin literally didn't deserve to get jobbed out in his big return. But regardless of my personal feelings toward that, that goes the same. Maybe Abdul lives, maybe Abdul dies. It really wouldn't change much. And I think a big change to come out of it would be Iggy's survival, since they would have a Hamo master like Caesar, and plus they would have like UV light hacks. So with all that being said, and assuming maybe Abdul's around because, you know, fire and stuff, this would basically lead to an Iggy survival no matter what. So more help means, I guess, the good boy Iggy gets to live. Now, another change, alternatively speaking, is now the final fight with Dio. I know I've skipped most of the arcs, but like, do I really gotta talk about all the arcs? Unless you guys want to hear it in the comments or something. Okay. But mine's from my little whiny attitude here. Against Dio, when it comes down to it, someone's gonna have to reveal the world's power, and I think it would be Caesar, but he wouldn't die. Since Caesar would have Mark around with him, German hacks and all that, Caesar would have actually survived the attack. Mark would have likely have hid away Caesar, with Stroheim also hiding him away, and they likely would have taken Caesar to a hospital. They would have probably told the Speedwagon Foundation, and this would have kept Caesar alive long enough, and then they would use their German hacks to probably do the German science stuff and give Caesar some kind of, you know, giant stomach thing. Help him out, maybe. It definitely would have worked, and it definitely could have kept Caesar alive in theory, as long as he hasn't bled out in time. But maybe there's a chance they save Caesar, but I do think Kakyoin would live in this timeline no matter what. Caesar is gonna either die revealing the world's power, or he's gonna still reveal the world's power in Kakyoin's place, or like he does reveal the world's power, but by some miracle he's able to make it because, you know, German science hacks, and Caesar can, I guess, survive part 3 and then be out for the rest of the part. I do think Stroheim and Mark would both die against Dio, though, in my opinion. I get the vibe that Mark would probably get killed somewhere in the story. No clue when exactly. Probably like the earlier half. And I think Stroheim would die later on. So in my opinion, someone dies to Vanilla Ice. Either Abdul or Machina. Caesar would either die revealing the world's power, or would almost die revealing the world's power. And then Stroheim and Mark would both die somewhere in the events of part 3. Everyone else, I feel like, would personally survive part 3, and that's really all I would have to say there. Now we're going on to Diamond is Unbreakable, part 4. So, Manfred could maybe be in this part. Hedwig and Marcia, those characters could show up in this part maybe. Or alternatively, they don't decide to show up, I guess, for, I don't know, whatever reason they want to show up for no reason. They maybe are not going to do part 4. Maybe they're just there for part 5, I guess. That's a maybe. I could see, like, more character. I think in this timeline, Abdul would live, now I'm thinking about it. Maybe just have Mark take the place. since I don't really know if there's a way Dio can kill. Like, I think he'd probably just crush Dry him to death, but I don't know any other way to kill, I guess, one of the other ones. He can crush Strawheim to death, while in the case of Mark, I have no clue what he could do to kill Mark off. Probably Vanilla Ice can just kill him off, so that could probably be how I'm thinking the more I think about it now. So Mark can maybe just die to Vanilla Ice, and since there'd be nothing left of him, this could be why he's out. So Avdol can live, which is now probably what I'm gonna go for. If Machina is still around, then maybe you can just kill off both Machina and Mark. I'm still no clue on what Caesar's fate would be in this timeline. He either dies revealing the world's power, or he reveals the world's power but survives because of German hacks. But in part 4, Kakyoin would definitely tag along with Jotaro in this timeline because they're bros and stuff. And this would probably lead to Kakyoin being there for when Jotaro meets Josuke and Koichi. Nothing too drastic would really change here, except obviously we got Kakyoin here to kind of chill around for Morio and do some stuff. He can get involved for like the Angelo arc, I guess. Like the Akira arc, I could see Avdol showing up, taking the place of the random Speedwagon Foundation member. I could also probably see like Nico and Rose showing up, same with Whole Horse. All those characters like showing up to help out in the part. I guess when we're kind of thinking about it, I don't think too much of Part 4 would really change, except there'd be more characters in this timeline. Overall, there'd be a lot more characters, and this expect a lot more characters in each part as the series kind of goes on. Those are the only real returning characters I could see for Part 4. I have no clue if someone from the Gutenberg family is going to come back for DIU. I think Marcia and Hedwig, those two can do it, maybe. But that's like a maybe, most likely maybe. That's kind of hard. I don't know where to fit them in. I guess for like 4 and 5. I don't know 100% which parts I'd put them in. But that's kind of it. Marcia and Hedwig are kind of mixed. Manfred is... I'm leaning more toward him being in Part 4, to be honest. Leaning a little more toward it. But there's also a part of me kind of wanted to think of him in 5. It's kind of hard to kind of put these new OCs in the story, because now you can't really say 100% where you would want to insert them in the part. With like Rose and Nico, I'm like 100% positive they could fit into Part 4 better, while Julius and Dominic could fit like in Part 5 even better. That's kind of how I see it in my way. In the case of like making new OCs, it's like, how can I make it so that they can fit in? So like, it's a little tough doing this one now in this case, because you don't really have much to do with them because they're new, so you gotta find a way to, I guess, justify a shoehorn, unless you just exclude them from both parts and just bring them back for 6, which they will be in Part 6, I'll have you know. But for 4 and 5, those are more the filler parts. You can find a way to shoehorn them into 4. I don't really have much to say about 4 now that I'm thinking about it. I don't really see any new deaths or any prevented deaths. I personally just think everyone who lived and died would have just went the same. I think all the new, returning Part 4 characters also would have survived in this timeline too. There's really nothing I can add into Part 4, so DIU realistically just goes the same in my opinion. Nothing too drastic would honestly change, except more people are just here for Part 4, I guess, so more characters can interact with like Josuke, Koichi, Okuyasu, Rohan, maybe even some other random Morio cast, I guess, can get some interactions out of these characters now. The new, like, old returning characters or some OC characters, I guess, but like, that's it. And on a side note, something I gotta admit now, I feel like Joseph would continue his Hanwon training because he would obviously have his friends with him who would probably be able to motivate him. Caesar seems like he'd continue it, so I think Joseph would too. If Caesar dies in Part 3, I could see Joseph still training on it still. Maybe a little bit slower on his training, but still training regardless, since I feel like he would want to train in Caesar's honor. But that's kind of really it. I guess that's really it for Part 4, and that's really all I could add here. Like for 5, doesn't really have much I can add, but I do think 5 would actually have a lot more changes than 4. So Avdol, who would have survived in my opinion, because Now I'm thinking about it, Machino or Mark would actually just take his death place for me personally, or someone else can, or like Whole Horse maybe. But I wouldn't do that because I like my boy Whole Horse. I wanted to make it in more than one part. But in the case of Avdol, he would go to Italy with Koichi, and I think he'd actually bring along Josuke, Rohan, and Okuyasu, which would also lead to them meeting a an OC named Frito. So he'd be the Zeppeli OC. He's from the distant Zeppelis, so yeah, he'd be from Caesar siblings, which Josuke and Okuyasu would meet. But when it comes to 5, nothing groundbreaking for 5 mostly, except we have more OCs. And I mean, not really OCs, but we have a new OC and we have more returning characters. But nothing I don't think would change too much, except we get to see some more fun interactions, some more interesting fights as well. Would have also liked to have seen, maybe what I think another, like some other kind of cool fights. Maybe we can get some cool additional fights out of La Squadra, I guess. But regardless, I think a change to come out of this timeline would have been Fugo would have actually not left the group in this timeline, because I think Fugo may be more comfortable, and plus Avdol could have related to Fugo's story, I guess, and bring him along, which causes Fugo to want to go. But I guess when it comes down to the rest of 5, I could see, similar to what I said with Dio, probably sending more minions after the group, because, you know, he would notice there's a larger number. I think the same logic would apply to Diavolo, and plus, if anything, it would be more in character, because unlike Dio, who's kind of cocky, would just send out just dumb villains, Diavolo is more, I guess, careful and conscious about him, because he doesn't want no one to see what he looks like. So by that logic, he's just going to send probably a gauntlet of even stronger villains now, because now there's even more people looking into his identity, and Diavolo doesn't like that kind of stuff. I don't think any of the other kind of characters would, I guess, live and die. And I guess when it comes to the final fight, I would include Polnareff, Iggy, Julius, and Dominic all together. Caesar, if he's still alive, would be here. Otherwise, he's, like, if he still dies from the wound, I guess. Like, if it's too late to save him, then unfortunately, then I guess he's not in part 5 and just dies in part 3. But when it comes down to it, the rest of part 5, I think Avdol would be the one who gets stuck in Coco Jumbo at the end instead. So this would kind of lead to a kind of fun moment, I guess, where Avdol's the one who gets stuck in Coco Jumbo. When it comes to the body switching stuff, I feel like when it comes down to it, it's like, I feel like between Polnareff, Julius, Dominic, and Iggy, you can somehow switch bodies with them. Frito can probably switch bodies with, like, Koichi, and, like, Frito, Okuyasu, Koichi, and Fugo can randomly switch. But I would love to see a Josuke and Rohan body switch, because, you know, Rohan hates Josuke, so it'd be funny to see what Rohan and Josuke feel about being in each other's bodies. But when it comes to characters who live and die, I mean, you could go with the whole fate thing, and by that logic, then everything can kind of go the same, except there's just more people there to watch the deaths. But if we're excluding that fate stuff, because all of JoJo's predetermined and fated and stuff from what I've gathered, so in my opinion, I still think that the group could actually still save some cast, because those characters were never fated to go along, so by my logic, I'm just going to do this. Yeah, I'm sorry, JoJo fans, about fate and stuff. Screw you. No, I'm just joking. You're lovely people, okay? You're totally lovely people. But, Abakio still dies, because I don't really see there being a way to prevent his death. Unless they have, like, Josuke around, but I'd say keep his death the same, personally. Bruno, keep his 2 deaths the same. First time around, Bruno wanted to deliver Trish alone. Second time around, he was wanting to die there, so he was, like, the only one who wanted to stop the Requiem, who I think would have probably just been Magician's Red Requiem at the end, or Magician's Red Quiem. Terrible pun, I know. But regardless, that's probably one way it could go down. And then when it comes down to Narantia, I actually think he would live, because Iggy can use his sand. Iggy can lift Narantia up in the air while also making a sand clone, tricking Diavolo out, and this would save Narantia at the end. But however, this would probably lead to Diavolo targeting Iggy next and just killing Iggy. Granted, he would probably still try to go after Narantia in the fight, but with more people probably realizing Diavolo's plan, Josuke and Journa would probably be a lot more protective of Narantia, and Narantia would most likely actually get to live in this timeline, and would have definitely got to do with school and his studies at the end. So at the end of part 5, Narantia would have gotten his happy ending. Note, I have no clue on whether or not I'm including the Gutenberg family, the other 3 members now, because I still no clue on whether or not to put them in part 4 or 5 yet, or just not put them in any of the parts. You can say your opinions in the comments, but that's just my opinion. Alright, let's go to part 6 now. Alright, we're at the end game. We're at the finale. Stone Ocean. So, for starters, OC stuff. Kakyoin and Rose have their son, Tenmei, okay? Julius and Nico, they have a daughter named Taitagen, or I don't even know how to pronounce the name. Jeez, I had to pick that name because I wanted to pick the fashion names, and I had to pick something like that. Dominic has a daughter named Sophia. In this timeline, Polnareff would have been more motivated to have kids because, you know, he actually would have seen his friends have kids, so he probably would have actually been more motivated to have kids, and he would have a son named Michael. Alright, we've done it. We've gotten there, and there's a new OC. Yeah, another OC. Yeah, I'm bloating up this cast, ain't I? Alright, so meet your new Joe Bro guys, Valentino Gutenberg. Honestly, the fact they never used Valentino for Stone Ocean as a name is just criminal. It's such a cool sounding name. So Valentino Gutenberg, there he is. Alright, there, new Stone Ocean Joe Bro. Okay. I guess regarding the changes, because this is more or less the lightning round. I mean, if you want me to, I'll go more detailed in the comments, but I'm going lightning round on this bad boy right here. Stone Ocean lightning round. 3, 2, 1. Alright, so off the bat, more people would be joining this part. We would have Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi, Rohan, and also Joseph, who would continue his hormone training. Marcia, Heldwig, and Manfred, they would all be joining the part 2. All of them would all be in this part and would actually join along for Stone Ocean in this timeline. Alright, so what other changes are, I guess, regarding part 6? Well, in this timeline, nothing, I guess, too drastic would really change. Up until, I'd say, Punishment Ward arc, and that's kind of where Hermes wouldn't get her whole head injury from Sports Max, and instead she would die in this arc. Or maybe she would die, because in this timeline, someone will die in the Punishment Ward, and it's either going to be Hermes, or, alternatively, if you think Hermes should live, Marcia or Hedwig could take her place and die here. These are more or less maybes, and maybe if you want to keep Hermes dead, I guess. But I do think one of those two can die, and Hermes can live, maybe? Or Hermes can die here? One of those 3 are dying here. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it up to you. Alright. So I guess the rest of the Punishment Ward goes the same, but Foo Fighters would live in this timeline. That's some changes. Alright. Prison Escape goes the same. Now we get to the Sons of Dio. Ungolo has more people obviously here, but I don't really see too much changing since the entire fight was really just there. Most of the arc was just them interacting with a bunch of characters, and Weather was like the only one doing stuff in that arc. Alright, so like that arc, that filler arc, it's done. Next, Sky High, Rekill. Rekill would actually go the same, but a big change in the ending is since Hermes is done from the story, and plus we have more characters here, I think Rekill would actually turn good in this universe. So Rekill would actually join the Stone Ocean Jobros. That's a change as well. So Rekill would get his redemption. Whole Horse would also find a way to join in the story. Dominic, Polnareff, and Julius, and Nico, Kakyoin, and Rose, and Jotaro, they're also going to be here. Same with Manfred. They're all going to be here, and they'll join in later. So yeah. All right. So kind of continuing the lightning round. The arc with Donatello versus goes the same. More or less goes the same. I still think he gets rid of Weather he still takes weather reports memories from Poochie. This basically leads to the heavy weather arc. Weather report still becomes evil, and that leads to Poochie vs. Weather. F in the chat for weather report because he still dies to Poochie. In my opinion, I don't see there being really any way to prevent that unless they just prevent the memory thing with Rohan, or Rohan can just die taking Weather's place if you want to go that route. All right, we're on the final arc. Sea Moon, someone's dying here. Either I think Colhurst is dying in this arc, and so will Okuyasu die in this arc. This is a sad death, I know, but it's sad, and regardless, it happens. FF might also die here, and I could also see one of the Gutenbergs dying, most likely Marcy or Hedwig. Manfred's gonna survive, because now we're in the Maiden Heaven, and that's when all the Crusaders come in. Alright, this lightning round's been very spicy. Alright, so Riquel is obviously going to get some kind of arc where he wants to fight Poochie, and Riquel would most likely almost die in this arc. Maybe he lives, maybe he dies, who knows. I think that someone would be able to save him in time. So, Riquel, he'll survive, but he'll just be taken out of the rest of the fight. Most of the fight goes the same, and then bam, Anasui gets donut, but however, they're able to like pull his hand out, Stonefree's hand out of there, and then with Josuke around, bada bee, bada boom, Anasui's alive. Nothing much would really change here. I guess someone can maybe take like OG Ermi's death spot, or Ermi's, if she's still around, could take that death spot. I guess maybe, I don't know. But Jotaro would survive. He doesn't get chopped in half because you got Anasui around with his diver down, and he saves Jotaro the 3rd time in this arc. He already saved Jotaro like 2 times already, so this is his 3rd time. Alright, so with more Maiden Heaven stuff, basically we get more to the fight. You know, the fight gets more tense, etc. Slice, attack, Oda, Starfinger. You know, we get more kind of there with Jotaro vs. Poochie, until bam, at the end, Joseph dies. Yep, Joseph dies. Because this is a big twist. It's a big twist, and we need to kill off Joseph to kind of hit it right in the heart. Jotaro stops time. Bam. Poochie's killed. There. I did it. I went full-blown lightning around for Stone Ocean. Because I wasn't going to be here talking for Stone Ocean about this whole Stone Ocean thing all day. I made it as fast as I can. And bam. We made it to the end of this video. How did I do? I burned through the entire, I guess, Stone Ocean script. But overall, Weather's dying. Okuyasu and Holhorst and Joseph, those 4 are like dying no matter what. Hermes can maybe live, I guess. I think Polnareff would also die to Maiden Heaven, now thinking about it, because Polnareff's stand was called the fastest in part 3. So at this point, now having him go for fastest stand to, I guess, die to the fastest stand would be kind of ironic. And kind of pass the torch to Poochie. But that's it. That's the timeline. Ice Poochie and Straight, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Not only you guys enjoyed the video, but I hope everyone else enjoyed the video. Burnt through all of Stone Ocean very quickly because I didn't want to spend too much time talking about it. Thanks for watching. See you on the flip side. Peace out.